Ladies and gents, boys and girls all over the world. Do it like I'm doing it for TV, yeah, you heard. But man of the year 2 times and a third. Chatting with the sheriff, yeah, you gon' learn. Sheriff podcast where respect is earned. Wanna be a guest, gotta wait your turn. Oh yeah, come and kick it with the kick it with the sheriff when the stars emerge. Control the game with my fist, now it's stripes. Spitting chicklets, had to kick it, I went viral for life. Pack a lunch when I come, 4th all-time fights. Yeah, 523, that's paying the price. Holy sheriff round here with my name shining bright. Lights, camera, action, Danny G make it right. Walking to the room, chatting with the sheriff advice. 2-time record holder, so you better think twice. Sheriff badge, spun the bucket on ice. Sheriff badge on the jersey, meet me at center right. Oh yeah, meet me at center right. Yeah, you'll go to sleep for the night. Whoa, doing it like I'm doing it for TV. Oh yeah. Ladies and gents, boys and girls all over the world. Do it like I'm doing it for TV, yeah, you heard. But man of the year 2 times and a third. Chatting with the sheriff, yeah, you gon' learn. Sheriff podcast where respect is earned. Wanna be a guest, gotta wait your turn. Oh yeah, come and kick it with the kick it with the sheriff when the stars emerge.
Welcome everybody to an exclusive edition of The Sheriff. Boy, oh boy, do I ever have a treat for you, and would Don Cherry ever be proud. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you hear the term pound for pound very, very rarely. But right now, guys, I have the pound for pound most fiercest NHL enforcer of all time, and I'm going to introduce him right now. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls all over the world, I would like to introduce to you my guest tonight. He hails from Simcoe, Ontario, at 6 feet, 205 pounds. He is a heavyweight. He was drafted by the Toronto Maple Leafs in the 1992 NHL entry draft. He played for the New York Rangers, Chicago Blackhawks, and Pittsburgh Penguins. Known as the toughest pound-for-pound fighter in NHL history, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, my friend, Mr. Ryan VandenBussche. How you doing, my man?
Well, thank you for that intro.
No problem, buddy.
Hey, Simcoe born in Simcoe, grew up in Delhi.
Yes, Simcoe born, but grew up in Delhi. And ladies and gentlemen, that's actually what I want to get into first, Bushy, because, you know, we have very special people that come in and out of our lives. Some of us were lucky enough to know them for a long time. Others we don't. I knew someone that was actually from Simcoe, Ontario, and I learned a lot about the town, the history, the culture, the festivals that you guys have, all that when I was in my early 20s. So I would love to talk a little bit about Simcoe right off the hop, man. I know that you were born there. Now, when you say you were born there, were you only there for like a year or two and then moved to Delhi?
No, well, Simcoe is literally 15 minutes from Delhi, so I was only there for my birth, and then I went back to Delhi. So I grew up in Delhi, and Delhi is my hometown, and tobacco country, right?
Yes.
Neck of the woods. So that's
Absolutely.
part of Norfolk County. Our municipality is Norfolk County, and so yeah, it's a nice area. We're 90 miles southwest of Toronto, located on the North Shore of Lake Erie. And it's a good secret back there, but now a lot of Torontonians are coming down that neck of the woods buying property, so it's getting discovered.
Absolutely. And like I remember, like the scenery was incredible. It was a really nice drive. It's really not that far from the highways and whatnot.
Yeah.
But what I find most interesting is the farming culture. Mm-hmm. Like you said, it's tobacco country, but it's also other stuff. And just driving through it, getting to see how things work. I know they got work programs for people from different countries, and you know you'll see some of them in the downtown areas. There's a lot of cool culture going on over there. But one thing that me growing up that I had a big appreciation for is the motorcycle clubs and the MC, right? And I tell us what happened. Is it July the 13th or
any Friday the 13th?
Any Friday the 13th.
Any Friday the 13th. Port Dover is pretty packed. Even if it's in January, if it's a nice day, you're gonna get some crazy guys coming down there on their bikes.
That's okay.
And it's pretty neat for the town. I mean, people, the locals that don't like it, they get out of town, and the ones that do like it, they just embrace it.
Right on. Well, I liked it, and I'm a big cultural guy, so I thought it was really cool that's all part of the scene down
Yeah.
there. That's unbelievable. So now, I also wanted to talk a little bit, Bushy, about the fact that, Delhi specifically is actually known for being like an extremely tough town, like tough, like physical tough. Can you explain that a little bit? Can you defend it? Can you
Well,
tell me a little bit?
we had a lot of bush parties back in the day, and I don't know. You get young teenagers out in the bush, and you get them drinking. There seems to be a lot of fights for whatever reason, and we had our little rivalries with the other small towns within Norfolk County, like the Simcoes and the Langtons and the Port Dovers and the Waterfords. So we each of those towns had their high schools, right? So it was sports. The rivalries through sports, for the most part. So yeah, it was good.
I did hear though that, man, if you're out having a good time with your friends at a bar and things get a little rowdy, you do not want to bump into a group from Delhi, Ontario, buddy. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Especially if it was in the era where this guy was hanging out with his buddies and bar hopping.
We used to work on our fighting skills, pugilistic skills, way back in the early 90s. We'd work in tobacco all day long, and then after a hard day's of work in tobacco fields, we would, at the end of the day, our gang would get into the kill yard, and we'd put on our hockey helmets and our boxing gloves and go at it.
No way. I love hearing stories like that. Another thing that I wanted to mention was, the person that I knew, their father was actually a golf pro, and the golf scene is pretty big in that area too. And Bushy, one great memory that I have is actually playing in a celebrity golf tournament. I believe it was somewhere very close to Simcoe.
Yep.
Eric Cairns was in the tournament. Rob Blake. I believe you were in it as well.
Yep.
And I just remember it was my first year after playing for the Rochester Americans. And yes, I did get called up for a game, but I mean, I was an AHL player playing in this big name NHL, golf tournament. And I remember feeling so bad when I met my foursome, because I'm like, man, you got Rob Blake and Ryan VandenBussche, or you got Sean McMahon to play with. Who do you want to play with? So I remember
you got character. That means more than anybody.
I mean, it was
important.
I appreciate that, buddy.
Yeah.
It was a great experience, and I know that you guys are really big into the golf. And I remember, Bushy, that was when I first kind of started following you, because I really looked up to all the guys that were playing professionally that were from the Simcoe Delhi area, and men.
Where would you been playing at that time?
So at that time, it was just after my first year pro,
yeah,
and it was the Rochester Americans.
What year was that?
So this would have been 02, 03.
Okay, yeah.
After that season was the tournament. So,
man. Our last year of doing that tournament was 07.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on.
It was a good 25 years, I think.
And whereabouts was that?
Just outside of Simcoe.
Just outside of Simcoe,
yeah. Dover, yeah.
Yeah, man. It was an incredible experience, and seeing Jason Cullimore, Rob Blake, guys like that, how big they are, how big their calves are.
Right.
It's unbelievable. Jason Cullimore's legs. I mean, no diddy, but the guy's got tree trunks.
He's a big boy,
right? For legs, it's incredible. I also kind of wanted to talk, Bushy, about your family. I wanted to talk about mom and dad. Also, if there's any siblings, my friend.
Yeah. So my parents were separated when I was 10.
Yep.
I have one brother at the time, and I still do. And so I grew up on a farm in a little hamlet called Lindock, which is just outside of Delhi. And and then from there, I lived with my mom, my brother, and I. We fought quite a bit growing up, and he taught me how to take a beating for the most part until I got a little older and I got into my teenage years, and I could take care of myself. But I think my brother had a real
great on. I can't wait to get into this brother thing. I just had to let the viewers and listeners know that a huge VIP has just entered Bottom Line, Mr. Raymond LaRose, supporter since day one. Mr. Raymond LaRose is in the building. There you go. Okay, so the thing that I'm curious about, buddy, is, and I always ask my guests this, that, are kind of known to be tough guys and stuff like that, about their siblings. And the reason why is, for example, my family, 3 brothers, okay? I'm the oldest. My brother Pat is the middle. My brother Liam is the youngest. Now, Patrick is probably the toughest guy that I know right now. I believe I have a big part of that. I was 3 years older.
Yeah.
I was beating on Pat since he was 2 years old, chasing him around the house, chasing him outside of the house, chasing him down the street, just getting him enough of his foot to trip him, and then giving him a beating. And I believe that. And it's
I was that kid.
It was brother. It was sibling rivalry.
Yeah.
It was big brother wanting to bully little brother a little bit, whatever it was. But I believe I toughened Pat up.
Yeah.
And now Patrick is the head of security for EXO Records and the bodyguard for the famous artist of the weekend. And I believe he got all his grip from me. I'm taking credit. I'm taking all the credit. All the credit right here for P. Jones being the toughest man on the planet Earth.
Yeah. Did you fight him much more after he got to, he reached puberty and he got a little bigger?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Once my brothers got a little bit bigger, I had to ease off a little bit and say, hey, it's all right. Go ahead.
You started getting a taste of your own medicine.
I ended up being 8 inches shorter than my youngest brother.
Oh, geez.
And ended up being about, I'd say a good 50, 60 pounds lighter than Patty. So I had to kind of back off a little bit. But, that's just smart brains. You got to pick and choose your battles, right?
Yeah,
but let's talk about your brother, though. So what's the age difference?
16 months.
16 months?
Yeah,
Who's older?
He was older than me.
Oh, my God, Bushy.
Yeah.
So this is it right here.
Yeah.
So the man's got a year and a half on you, but he's got two
That
grades.
That was enough.
But he's got 2 grades on you, though.
He was just a grade.
Or 1 grade?
Yeah.
Okay, because the born September or whatever.
Yeah.
My thing, it was what year you were born in.
Right.
I know other times it was about how much you were born before September or whatever it is. But okay, so that's cool. A grade apart, a year and a half apart. Competition and battles.
Well, he was really tough on me. Like, I remember we moved into a house that had these 2 retaining walls in the backyard, and we would play hockey in between them, and I would take the ball and I would sometimes shoot it over the retaining wall. He'd get so pissed off because I shot it over the retaining wall, he'd want to fight me because of that.
So, but like in general though, is your brother tough? Like he's tough.
Oh, he was.
Tough as nails.
I mean, growing up he was tough as nails, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, he was beating the shit out of me all the time, and that was usually 2 times a week.
So Bushy, do you agree with that theory? Do you think that like assisted you on being way more tougher than the average human being?
Oh, 100%.
I really do. Like I think the siblings have a huge part in physical athletes' development and how they end up being as players, just based on their childhood, man, and competing.
100%. And, we were very competitive with each other.
Going to the dinner table and fucking getting people out of the way, right?
Yeah.
They getting the better plate.
Yeah.
Mom's got 2 plates. You want the better looking plates. You're just like, buddy, get out of my way.
We would fight over splitting the pop. We could only split a pop,
really?
Right? And if it wasn't exactly right, man, like if he had a little more, I had a little more. We're fighting over that kind of shit. So
another pause in the show, Ryan. Another VIP guest, Mr. Kyle Jones. Mr. Kyle Jones from Toronto Elite has just entered the building. Kyle Jones is in the building. The place is going wild. The crowd is loving the fact that Kyle Jones is here. Yeah, I had to get that in there. So another thing I wanted to ask was with the whole farming, growing up on the farm, was there not things that you had to learn at a young age, discipline, just like how did it all go with the tobacco? I'm more familiar with dairy farms and whatnot. How does it work with tobacco? Do you have to be up early to do stuff to water? Is it the same as cows?
I grew up on a farm, but I didn't work. We weren't growing. We weren't.
Okay,
growing tobacco.
so the farm setting.
I was in a farm setting, but my aunts and uncles, my whole family had farms, and my grandpa on both my sides, my mom and my father, they were both tobacco farmers in Belgium, and they immigrated to Norfolk County back in the late 20s and started growing tobacco, and then their kids were growing tobacco, and then that's how I kind of got into it. My dad got into real estate, and my mom was in hair too as well, and we lived on a farm, and then we rented out our land for asparagus and stuff like that. But then I would get shipped from my aunts or my uncles or my grandmothers and live with them for the summer, and then I would work in tobacco, priming tobacco or boat driving. So you plant the tobacco around this time of year, May. Usually May 2 for a weekend, which really sucked because you got to get up early in the morning and you're working every single day until you get all those plants covered. Yeah. Then you got to replant, and then then you got to sucker and clean, and then you got to usually sometimes late July, early August. Now you're priming tobacco. You're taking the leaves off the plants, and you're putting them into a baggie, and then you get to the end of the row, and you get your boat driver that comes and picks up the tobacco. takes it to the kill yard, goes to the kill yard. The ladies on the kill yard have a time machine. You put the tobacco on there. A stitching machine stitches the tobacco on this tobacco slat, they call it.
Yeah.
Goes up an excavator into the kill, those big gold green kills that you'd see back in the day.
Man.
It goes in there and you cure it for like a 24 hours-ish or so. And then, you know, as a kid, I would be taking out kill before we started tobacco. So you're up, you know, before the sun comes up, taking out kill, getting a free kill, getting it all unloaded, and then you fill another kill. So that was kind of rotation for about, I don't know, 45 days-ish or so, usually 100-acre farms around there at the time.
Yeah.
So now a lot of it's automated, right, with automatic harvesting machines and stuff like that. So it's a little different. You don't have the locals growing up, and so you get a good group of buddies that you go to school with, and you get they call it a gang, right?
Really?
You get your gang together, and you go to a farm and you work, and if somebody shows up late, you're going to be fucking pissed off at them because you need your whole gang there on that priming machine because you got 5 guys on that priming machine, and you each got a row, and you don't want to be missing your rows.
Wow.
So it was pretty cool upbringing.
So even like the team mentality and sacrificing for the team and all that kind of process was already being developed.
100%.
Like at a very young age.
Yep.
Man.
Teamwork.
Like that.
You don't want to be late, and you don't want to be, you know, you got to take your 2 to 3 leaves, and you start at the very bottom, and you take 2 to 3 leaves off of each plant, and then you go, those are the sand leaves, then you go through seconds, and you go through thirds, and you go through tips. So if you're a lazy primer, you're only taking 1 or 2 leaves. By the time you get to the very top, where you should only have 2 or 3 leaves, some of them have 4 to 6. And then the farmer gets really pissed off at you.
Yeah. So, okay, so how big is this region? How big is this tobacco farming region? So we got Delhi, we got Simcoe.
So it's all Norfolk County, pretty much,
County.
and surrounding county. You get some out in Haldeman, but the best soil, loamy soil, is in Norfolk County, and that's what they discovered way back in the day. My grandfather back in the 30s and 40s went out to London area to do some tobacco, and St. Catharines, and then he ended up going back to Norfolk County.
Where the best soil was.
Where the best soil was,
Right on. And then so at the same time, there's a lot of hockey players that are coming out of this great soil area, man. Let's talk about some of them. So let's start with Mr. Rob Blake. So how long have you known Blake?
Well, actually, I met him when I was in Turkey Point playing summer hockey, and my dad had a cottage in Turkey Point. He had a cottage in Turkey Point, and then he was actually a great mentor to me. I was just drafted by the Toronto Maple Leafs, so I was 18 years old. Yeah. And so he had a gym in his garage, and because I was in Turkey Point, he just kind of took me under his wing and gave me a key to his gym, and I got to see how a professional trains, and I realized I wasn't close to being a professional. So I had a lot more work to do, and that was kind of cool to see. Red Kelly actually was from our neck of the woods too. From Norfolk County.
That's a huge name. Yeah. I just remember Jason Cullimore.
Yeah.
Jason Cullimore. We were talking before the recording. We were talking about the size of some of these guys' legs and their calves. Mm-hmm. Man, Jason Cullimore, like, tell me if I'm wrong, but I remember him being like 6'5" or something.
Yeah.
You know, the guy was like 245 pounds.
Big boy.
I remember him playing in Tampa Bay and just being just an absolute monster. Mm. And then, I'm with my girlfriend at a festival in Simcoe. And the coolest thing, Bushy, is like, I was an AHL player that already had an NHL game. I'm like 21 years old. Yep. Walk around with my girlfriend at this festival. And, all of a sudden we see Jason Cullimore and his wife. And, she's like, that's Jason Cullimore. That's Jason Cullimore. I'm like, what do you mean that's Jason Cullimore? I'm Sean McMorrow. I just played against the Toronto Maple Leafs 2 months ago. But like, I'm all joking aside. The way that we looked at Jason Cullimore was that he was like a cult hero. Yep. Like the guy was like he is a legend, but we really, really looked up to him. Even me being at the AHL level already, I looked at him as like a god, man. And like, these towns support the players so much. It's really cool to see like the love that you guys get from your hometowns, because you don't always see it. Like you see videos of Stolars walking through the streets of Toronto. Right. People don't even know who he is. Right. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Where you guys are like gods in your towns.
Yeah. There's a lot of hockey people that came from our neck of the woods.
Yeah.
And Chico Mackey was one of them too. Colin Campbell from Tillsonburg.
Absolutely, yep. Tillsonburg. That's
Jordy Kinnear, remember him?
Jordy Kinnear.
Boy.
Holy buddy.
Nelson Emerson.
Yeah.
John Stevens.
Holy. Yeah. Woo. I want to also get into your minor hockey. Was there a team that you kind of stuck with, or were you bouncing around a lot depending on where the opportunities were? Like how did it go for minor hockey, like leading up to the OHL?
Yeah, no, minor hockey for me was played in Delhi, which was double C hockey. And then my dad said, if you want to play in the OHL, you got to make a junior B team as a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
So then I went to Tillsonburg and I tried out for a junior B team and I ended up making it. And yeah, that's kind of how I got drafted.
Okay, tell me about this level in that region of Ontario in this era.
Mhm.
Equals, you can literally fight your way onto a team. That's the way it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Barnaby talks about that a lot now.
Mm-hmm.
You used to be able to go to training camp and fight your way onto a hockey team. If you were good enough, and it was you and a bunch of other people, if you were able to put everything on the line, they were going to take you. The game's changed now. But tell me about what training camp and preseason must have been like for a young Ryan VandenBussche. I'm assuming you were an incredible player, but I don't know if that was the point where you knew that this is what was going to get you places.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I wasn't really much of a scrapper on the ice. Obviously, in minor hockey, I was always an aggressive, hard skating. I was a pretty decent skater, so I could, I was good on the forecheck, good on the back check, and of course, minor hockey, I'm scoring more goals, obviously, and they're at that level. But it didn't happen until I got to junior B, and as a 16-year-old kid, I still played the same style. I was forechecking hard and finishing my checks. And when you're hitting a 20-year-old, in junior, they don't like that. So
they don't.
They come after me, and I didn't back down, and that's kind of how I kind of figured out my.
So, but did they give you an opportunity to fill that role, or did you just kind of just take it with the experience of having to do it? Like, how did it happen?
I think I just kind of rolled into it because, number one, you got to be able to play hockey. I mean, that's on your mind first, right? You don't want to be a liability on the ice.
Exactly.
No matter how tough you are, they're not going to play you, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's what just finishing my checks and just playing a physical game, and it just came to me. And then I just answered the bell, I guess.
So now, would you say, you must have been incredibly successful, though, in the beginning for you to keep doing it, though?
Well, I didn't realize I was a lefty until this one day I just started throwing lefts. I mean, I always wrote with my left hand, but I felt right dominant. Like I played tennis with my right hand, I played ping pong with my right hand, but it's a little bit ambidextrous. So, it was just an evolving thing.
Right on. So now I'm going to switch it up a little bit now. So now we were talking about having to play the game. Having to be that you must have been a great player even to get the opportunity to be able to play junior and keep moving forward. Buddy, the Norwich Merchants. Buddy, you had 22 points in 21 games.
Yeah.
You had over a point a game. What position were you playing at that time?
Just playing right wing.
You were playing right wing.
Yep.
Okay, so you're over a point per game guy. Okay? Now, I was trying to look it up. I couldn't really find anything. I know the teams you played for in the O. But can you tell us about how the OHL draft transpired and all that kind of stuff? And obviously you were pretty busy, buddy, because you did an OHL draft, and then shortly thereafter it was the NHL draft. So
yeah, it was like 2 years span.
It
was really things happened really fast there.
Yes.
Mac. It was playing double C hockey in Delhi to junior B hockey. I wasn't getting much ice time in junior B, so I went down and played some junior C hockey. But it was a fight that I got into while I was playing junior B. And it was against St. Catharines, and I fought one of their overagers, 20-year-old guy or 21-year-old guy, and did fairly well. And Cornwall ended up drafting me in the 14th round just because of that fight. I learned later, Terry McFarland was a scout, and he said, I saw you in Chatham one night, and you fought one of our overagers, and you did really well. And that's we didn't know who to draft, but I just remember that night he said, so I threw your name in a hat with the Cornwall Royals. And anyways, they ended up picking me, and then I went to Cornwall.
So Cornwall, great hockey town, nice rink.
Yep, great.
Nice rink. Yep. You had a good experience in Cornwall?
100%.
Right on. I see that you started off pretty good in Cornwall. Your first 100 games, you were pretty much averaging a point every other game. You know what I mean? And then you kind of picked it up from there, buddy. So you always had the ability to put points up on the board. You always had the ability to play the game. And I admire that, man, because it used to be that you could just be a top person, but you weren't that guy. You could play too. So that's a really big bonus for you.
Well, Yeah, Mark Crawford was my coach in junior, right? So
Was he really? For
Yeah,
Cornwall, or when you
for
moved
Cornwall,
on?
my first year pro
Okay.
in junior. And then he was also my first year coach in pro, St. John's.
No
Maple
way.
Leafs, yeah.
All right, so now let's move along the timeline a little bit. So now, as we mentioned, there's a 2-year period where we're very busy. We get drafted to the O, depending if you're an underager or a regular age player. Then the next year is your NHL draft year as well.
2 years later. Yep.
2 years later. So the Toronto Maple Leafs, man,
Yep.
7th round, I believe, right?
Eighth round.
It was the 8th round pick. That's right. We're both 8th round picks, buddy.
Yeah.
We're both 8th round picks. Me to Buffalo, you to Toronto. Where was your draft, my friend?
It was in Montreal.
No way, buddy.
Yeah.
Montreal. So now
Yeah.
this would have been at the Forum.
That's right.
Wow.
92.
This was the year before the last Canadian NHL team won the Stanley Cup in 1993. So this is in 1992.
It was also the year that they took down the curtain, basically. They could draft. There was not a quota on Europeans.
Oh.
So that was the first year that
So it was harder to get drafted.
It was harder.
A
There's a
lot
lot of guys
harder.
on my team that I thought were rated in the 4th, 5th, 6th round and
They
never
didn't
got
go.
drafted. And
Where were you rated then?
I was right around the 7th, 8th round.
Okay.
And yeah.
So you went right around where you okay, right on. Man, so that was the 1992. That was the first year.
Yep. There's a lot of
And
Euros
then
drafted
hold on,
that year.
was 92? Was that the year that Eric Lindros to Quebec?
No,
to
he was
Quebec?
91.
He was 91. Okay, so this is the year after
That's
Eric.
right.
A year before Montreal wins the cup.
That's right.
It's exciting times in hockey, ladies and gentlemen. The most exciting time is Ryan VandenBussche getting drafted to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So now you get drafted to the Leafs. Couple more years in the O. Let's talk about the St. John's Maple Leafs, man, because I'm telling you one thing, buddy. The St. John's Maple Leafs were my favorite road trip when I played in the American Hockey League. Buddy.
Great city.
I was on George Street 2 times for 2 St. Patrick's Days, Ryan VandenBussche.
Yeah,
Yes! We're clapping for that, Ryan VandenBussche.
That's
George Street, 2 nights.
Yeah.
St. Patrick's
That's
Day.
what do you remember?
It's funny that I remember. Let's talk about St. John's, buddy. Where did you live in St. John's, man?
Well, my first year I lived on Logie Bay Road, which is right across from the old arena.
Jeez.
15 Logie Bay Road. I don't know why I remember the address. And then
Tell the people, right?
yeah, Yannick Crow was one of my roommates. Todd
Yannick
Gillingham
Crow?
and Guy Who. Yeah.
And I played that guy in NHL
Yeah.
94 so many times.
Yeah. And
All
then the following year was, we would go down to George Street, of course,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
Logie Bay Road was a good cab ride away, and the winters down there are pretty harsh with the wind and everything. And
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, you know what? There's no way I'm living that far from George Street next year, so
Yeah.
I ended up getting a place right,
No
crawling
way.
distance from George Street,
No
so I
way,
could
Bussche.
walk home.
Come
that was a
on,
priority to me.
We got to clap for that, too. Wow, this is incredible, man. How good were you guys in St. John's? Like, how good were you those years? Like, did you guys?
We were decent. We were top
Yeah.
3. Yeah.
You guys made
Yeah.
runs in the
Yeah.
playoffs and whatnot?
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
on.
Mark Crawford was the coach the first year, like I said, and then Tom Watt. Remember Tom Watt?
Tom Watt.
He was the coach my following year.
And that's
yeah.
when I first started following the Toronto Maple Leafs, which was in the early 90s. Mr. Tom Watt, so he was probably the Leaf coach like 95,
Yes.
96.
No. This was 94, 95. Tom
94,
Watt was the
95.
coach in St. John. So he was coaching in Toronto, I think, in 89 or in the late 80s.
so
or
before.
something. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And he was a character. And I'll never forget this. It was my second year pro. And he came into the dressing room. It was our home game, first home opener. And he comes in the dressing room and he says, I want all you guys, it's going to be dark out there. You're going to come out with the Zamboni comes out. And I want you guys to skate out as fast as you can to the blue line. And I want you to stop and make a nice spray of snow. And as soon as he said that, I visualized in my head me going out there stopping and fucking falling. What happens? I'm number 8. I get called out. I skate out there. I go to stop. I don't know. I hit a divot or something. My knees buckled.
Bussche,
There was a red carpet right at the red line.
Bussche.
And I fell at the blue line and I slid into the carpet. And our mascot was Buddy the Puffin, who was standing on the carpet. Took Buddy the Puffin off the carpet. He fell. Yeah.
Come on.
I ended up
Bussche.
getting back to the blue line, and I got a standing ovation. So I put my arms up in the air and I
No
did
way.
the
Hey,
bow.
that's how you.
So
That's how you got
it
to do
was.
it, man. That's unreal.
And then that same game, I got suspended for 5 games for jumping over the boards. Somebody, Mark LaForge came to our bench and speared Kenny Belanger.
Wow.
So,
man, that was
a little embarrassing.
So, I wanted to talk about. Okay, before that, I want to talk about your first NHL game. Please tell the viewers and listeners about how you got called up and who you played and where it was.
So it was against Buffalo.
No way.
Yep, it was in Buffalo.
It was in Buffalo.
The Marine
in
Midland.
the old Odd?
No,
or when the Marine Midland first opened up?
That's right.
Wow. Okay, HSBC. Okay,
so
yeah.
That would have been 96.
Oh, wow.
December,
okay. I was
December
in grade
13th. Yeah.
Right on, man.
Yeah, that was 96.
So who was there, man? Who was in the lineup for Buffalo?
So Ray and Barnaby were there.
Yep.
And,
was May there?
May was there too, but I don't remember. I don't know if he was playing that game.
Okay.
I almost went out with Razor, but the rest came in. We never went out. I tried to go out with Barnaby.
Yeah.
He tried to suck me in like he did in the minors, and he did suck me in the minors. He hit me in the boards and wanted to fight me, and then I dropped my gloves and he skated away.
Matt Barnaby.
Yeah. So
Matt Barnaby.
Anyways, and then fast forward a few years later, then now I'm playing against him in the NHL. Same shit. He hits me in the boards. He wants to fight me. I'm like, drop your fucking gloves.
Yeah.
Let's see you.
So nothing. So no majors. No
Nothing.
majors.
No,
the first game.
No, my first shift was with Messier and Darren Langdon. So Mess was my centerman.
Come on.
And
bro. Mark Messier.
Mark Messier, yeah.
And this is with the New York Rangers.
This is the Rangers, yeah.
Wow.
And that morning, so we had a pregame escape. I was so nervous. I skate down into I walked down to the hotel. We have breakfast right at the hotel. Then you walk to the rink. But I'm walking in for breakfast. There's Wayne Gretzky sitting on the table by himself, and he gives me one of these.
Wayne Gretzky.
So I got to have breakfast with him in the morning before my first game. Yeah,
the great one.
The great one. Yeah.
Whose record was just broken.
That's right.
Wow, man, that's a really cool day.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this: were you guys at the Marriott? Where were you guys?
I don't even remember the hotel.
I remember the hotel that we would stay at in training camp and whatnot. They would say that was the hotel that the visiting teams would come to.
Yeah, so it was close to the arena. We could walk there.
Okay, right on. The downtown one, right on. Yeah. Man, that's really cool stuff. I wanted to get into the fact that, we had the same role. We come from a time where, if you're willing to sacrifice and put your body on the line, then that's going to be a better chance that you're going to be in the lineup than if you're not. We come from a world where sometimes the entire game was controlled with what was happening with the tough guys. They were controlling how the games were going. They were controlling the tempo of the game. They were controlling the pace of the game, how rough the game was going to start. I have a song for my podcast that was created by Brett Williams. Shout out to Brett Williams, where there's one line that said, "I used to control the game with my fists. Now it's stripes because I'm reffing." Mm-hmm. I find that back in the day, man, our type of player, we could control games almost as much as the officials, man. Mm-hmm. That's how much respect and emphasis was put on the role of players. The game has changed a lot now. But Bushy, you were going up against guys that were my height and bigger. Guys that had 30, 40, 50 pounds on me, right? You were playing 3-3s. You were playing in the AHL 4 and 5s. Mm-hmm. Sometimes 4 and 6s and 5 and 7s.
Upper league in the American Hockey
right?
League. Yep.
Now, you played way more in the NHL than you did in the AHL, but man, the grind in the AHL doing what you did must have been a little bit harder than in the NHL, even though the guys were that much tougher. Yeah. Or am I wrong?
I played
Tell
just
me your theory on that.
I played just as many games.
You played more NHL. I just checked it, buddy.
Oh, maybe a little bit more games.
I just checked it.
But I was a healthy scratch more. I spent more time in the NHL. And
yes. And sorry to interrupt. I just got to clarify that. I was explaining that to people. I said, man, Bushy's got a lot of NHL games, but this is the number, and it doesn't even justify it because, like I said, if Bushy's team was playing another team that had a legitimate heavyweight, he was in the lineup 100%. Bushy was such a good team guy that even though he may not have played every game, the team wanted him there the whole year, guaranteed, just for his presence. just for his team toughness, just for, right? Like, I'm sure you heard that in your meetings, buddy.
I was on the roster for over 600 games, to put it in perspective.
There you go.
And then played, I don't know, a little over 300 or something. But yeah, I mean, camaraderie in the room. Like, I was a DJ. I love to play the music.
No way.
Like
You're
that.
the team music guy?
And I was injured a lot too, and I was a healthy scratch for a lot. But I mean, you got to keep a positive attitude being around there.
Absolutely.
And going back to changing the momentum of the game. Yeah, I mean, guys like us could change the momentum with a good scrap. You just don't want it to go the other way. You know how the game goes.
Yes.
At the beginning of the game, the first period's going, and you just. They come out of the gates and they score 2 or 3 goals right at the hop. You can change the momentum pretty quick.
Yes, you can.
You pretty much got up to this all of the first and second period to do that.
Yes.
Third period, if it's a tight game, it's we're not going to see the ice that much. So, but
did you find that, like, it's a long season, right? Not every game can be prepared for the same way, depending on who the opponents are, the dynamics, how many guys they got, so on and so forth. But did you find that you could go into a game and that if the other tough guy was willing, if you just got that fight over with, that you'd be able to play better and more freely because the fight was done, so you represented your team, you let the other team know that you're there. Yes, I'm here. I'm fighting second shift. I'm here tonight.
Like,
was that how it was for you?
That's how it was for me too. If I was playing against you and you're on a team and I knew you were a scrapper,
we would probably fight our first shift.
We would just kind of get it over with.
Yeah, we said, "Do you want to just get this over with?"
Like,
okay, so just I want to get into more of it.
The older you get, though, you kind of like you just worry about playing hockey, but it was just so much easier to fight.
My first year, I'm not gonna lie, Bushy. My first year, I led the American Hockey League in fighting majors. I had 41 fighting majors. I'm not gonna lie. When I got out there, all I was thinking about, just get a fight in. Get a fight in. Who's it going to be? Who is it? Is it him? You want to go? You want to go? You want to go? You don't? If you want to go, you want to go. I swear, man. I believe that because I was willing to sacrifice so much, that the Buffalo Sabres rewarded me with my 1-game call-up my first year pro.
That's awesome.
I was leading the league.
First year pro.
My first year pro, buddy. I was 21 years old.
Nice.
Just down the street at the Air Canada Center, now the Scotiabank.
Oh, it was right in Toronto.
Saturday night, Hockey Night in Canada, in Toronto.
That's cool.
I was leading the league in fighting majors.
Yeah.
That's the way the sport used to be. You get rewarded for sacrificing. Yeah. You could fight your way onto a team, and you could fight your way to the NHL. And that's what I did.
Did you fight in your first game?
I did it, but I fought Parrott in preseason against the Leafs. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I fought Nathan in preseason, but I didn't. Ty Domi just told me, kid, you got to make the team from the beginning of the year if you want to fight a guy like me, brother. You know what I mean? Like, he said that, and I'm like, come on, Ty, give me a shot, bro. I've been watching my whole life. He's like, buddy, you got to make the team from the beginning of the year if you want to fight a guy like me, okay? And there's nothing I could say. I just put my head down and said, okay, sir. So that's how that went. But just real quick, we're talking about these battles. We're going to get into more of it at the end of the show. But I just want to see how you did your fighting stance, Bushy, but more importantly, why you were doing that stance, what you were trying to do, and what you were looking for from your opponent.
So if I'm fighting a guy like you,
yes,
who's
so
long,
I'm tall.
I need to get in tight. And if you have a loose jersey right here, I don't want to grab right there. I want to grab it behind you. So if I'm fighting, I'm going to keep my elbows in tight.
So if I was like this,
I'm keeping my arms in tight like this.
Yeah.
And I'm coming like this. And I'm going like this.
Oh.
And then now I'm getting your jersey. I'm getting your helmet at the same time.
So you're taking off the helmet.
At the same time.
Now I'm in big trouble. Okay. So you're doing double. You're doing double?
Yeah.
So now you were so you know that you're a bona fide southpaw.
Yeah.
Bona fide southpaw. So you were throwing left no matter what. Did you ever start with rights, or it depended what they were grabbing?
Yeah.
So you're a switch.
If I'm gonna fight another lefty, then sometimes I would just throw rights.
Okay.
So I would just get it.
But
depends on fighting though.
Oh, okay. But this for anybody taller than you.
Yeah, I'm getting in there.
Okay.
So now what matter. Even if it wasn't a guy a little smaller than me.
Okay. So what if it was like a guy like? It doesn't even matter. What if it was more of a clutch and grab guy? So you guys are squared off.
Darren Langdon.
And then the clutch and grab guy grabs you here.
Yeah.
So he's got you here.
That's okay. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to bring you right in tight. I'm bringing you right in tight. Same thing.
I'm in big trouble there too.
I'm in tight.
All right.
I keep you tight until I'm ready.
We're going to do a quick, because I'm such a big sweater and it's so intense. But we're getting, okay. All right. So thank you for that. The viewers and listeners probably really appreciate it, especially the fight enthusiasts. I know dropyourgloves.com, hockeyfights.com. I know Dan, all those guys, they all messaged me and said, man, can you just ask him, man? Ask him about his stance. Ask him what he's thinking, all that type of stuff. So thank you for that, for sure. So now, I'm so excited, buddy. I'm like out of breath. So now I want to talk about when you were done with the NHL, you got an opportunity to go overseas, buddy.
Yep.
One of these teams that you played for, I have a little of experience being educated about them as a young child. The team in Sweden, the Jokerit. Tell me about.
Finland.
Oh, so that's Finnish Flash,
Yeah.
Timo Solani.
Yeah.
Finland, Jokerit. I'm getting it mixed up. Finland, Jokerit. Tell us the recruiting process and how you decided to actually go to Jokerit in Finland.
Well, I turned down an offer from the Ottawa Senators.
No way.
They offered me.
Was it a two-way?
It was a two-way.
Okay.
But it's 500 over 250, which is pretty damn good. And
So
then,
250 in the minors.
Yeah, and that summer in 2006, I got in a little trouble with the law.
Yep.
And then I got out of the hammer there, I guess you could say. And then I had that first offer from Ottawa right off the hop. And I thought, well, that happened pretty quick. Maybe I'll get something better. So I turned it down. I was looking for a one-way and never got that one-way.
Okay,
I
so
should have taken
you
it.
waited a little bit too long.
And then there was no offers coming in. And then Doug Shedden reached out later on that summer, or actually it was in the fall during training camp, and asked me if I wanted to go down to Jokerit, play for him, and finish. At the end of I knew it was at the end of my career anyways. I had a fusion gun on my neck, and I was kind of on my way out anyway. So I thought, you know what, why not go down to Finland, play some hockey, and went down there for probably a couple months, and then I had an opportunity to go to New Mexico.
Yes.
Be a player coach there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So my buddy David Silverstone, I believe that he had a chance to line up against you when you were in New Mexico.
Okay.
And what he told me was, he said, yeah, man, one of the highlights of my career is being able to line up against VandenBussche. And I'm like, well, I mean, because he's a tough guy as well.
Yeah.
I was like, well, Dave, like, did you guys look at each other? Like, were you guys, And he's like, well, I just told him it was an honor, and I think he knew.
Oh, we fought.
No, you didn't fight.
Oh, we didn't fight. Okay.
You didn't fight, but I think that was okay with him.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
he just wanted. He wanted to play against you. He would have done it.
There was a lot of
He's a
guys
warrior.
that wanted to fight me in that
Yes,
way because
absolutely.
it seemed like every
You're
game
an
there was
NHL name.
somebody was coming after me.
Absolutely, buddy. I wanted to, right before we sign off or whatever, like for this segment, I kind of wanted to get into the Chicago Blackhawks, buddy, because, I had a chance to go to their training camp. I had a chance to play for their affiliate. I just find that, Chicago Blackhawks have kind of taken a hit in the media just for things that have happened, over the past few years and stuff, and like controversies and whatnot. But I wanted you to talk about how amazing of an organization the Chicago Blackhawks are, how proud you must have been to play for the Hawks, to hear those beat drums that you would hear,
The
man.
big organ.
But even in the fights and the scrums,
Right.
they play the
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. They would time it with your punches. Yeah.
like what?
That
Like
was
that.
good.
Buddy,
Right.
Man, I'm in the stands
Yes.
getting fired up.
Yeah.
I'm in the stands. They were so good to us in Rockford, man. They tell us same thing, Rochester and Buffalo, but in Rockford, an hour from Chicago, they're like, boys, come to any game you want. Just call us. We'll bring you in. You'll get a suite.
Yeah.
You'll get all this stuff, man. We used to go all the time. I'm hearing the, you know what I mean? So
Chicago is a great place.
David
to play.
Kochi,
Yeah.
David Kochi was the guy
Played with him.
in Chicago when I was in Rockford.
Yeah. Okay.
And man, I was really close, man. Isn't
Yeah.
that Peters guy was coaching Rockford and that whole
Okay.
Akeem Alou stuff,
Yeah.
and it was a whole roller coaster. But man, Chicago. Let's
Yeah.
hear about Chicago.
Well,
man.
the city itself is amazing, and the organization I can't complain because they had me there for seven seasons, parts of 7 seasons. They traded for me from New York, and I spent most of my career there. Bill Wirtz was the owner at the time.
Yeah.
And things, they look back and things could have been a little different. They weren't airing the games back then, right? So a lot of the people were growing up in Chicago. They weren't actually seeing the games on TV because they expected them to go to the games, right? But I think they lost a little bit of a generation of hockey there because there's our fan support wasn't the best at that time. It was just an older school way of thinking. People, Mr. Wirtz was like, people pay big money for those season tickets. We want them to come to the games.
Absolutely.
But you got to get them on TV and get them watching it and get them into it and make them want to come to the game too. So I think unfortunately, when he passed and his son Rocky took over and the organization just flipped like that.
That's it.
And they opened up the
Patrick
games.
Kane,
Jonathan
got the
Canes. Well, during my tenure there,
Sean McMorrow in Rockford.
That's right. There was a lot of bad seasons there. So they had a lot of high draft picks for a lot of years, right? So
there's two pretty high ones right there, buddy.
I like to say
Jason
that.
Kane, I think it was 1-1.
If it wasn't for our era there, they wouldn't be so good.
There you go.
When they're winning those
you're,
cups.
You're the reason for the 3 cups in 6 years.
I got an assist on that. No,
Ryan VandenBussche should be getting some rings, man. Because that was like a mini dynasty.
Yeah.
They actually had the 3 and 6. So to see the full extended version, check out our Patreon. Ryan, I want to thank you for coming on the show. And I want to thank the listeners and viewers for tuning in to another episode of The Sheriff. We'll see you guys next time. Woo!
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, buddy.
Okay.